On behalf of the Kia Kaha Myanmar group, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this very important and timely symposium on Myanmar. One of the key objectives of Kia Kaha Myanmar is to keep attention on the ongoing crisis in Myanmar and to promote informed debate about ways forward for the country. And that's why we've worked with our partners, the Centre for Strategic Studies, the Asian New Zealand Foundation, and Union Aid to bring you a distinguished lineup of speakers today. They will help us explore the key issues and identify and discuss possible pathways forward to a genuine federal democracy in Myanmar. The crisis in Myanmar is an extremely serious one. It is challenging the application of international standards and norms, and also challenging the effectiveness of institutions which promise fundamental human rights and democratic choice to all peoples. The UN High Commissioner on Human Rights reported this month that since the military coup d'etat of 2 years ago, 2,917 civilians have been killed, 17,572 have been arrested, including 381 children. 1.3 million people have been displaced from their homes and communities, and around 17.5 million people need humanitarian assistance. The responsibility for these shocking facts does lie squarely with the military junta. On the 1st of February 2021, as we all know, it overthrew a government which had been democratically re-elected by a large margin by the people of Myanmar just the November before. And that election had been deemed to be credible by the international observers. Over the past 2 years since the coup, the military has waged a brutal war against the people of Myanmar. Over the past year, the number of airstrikes against civilian locations has increased by 141% on the year before, with some 39,000 structures being destroyed in villages and towns. This tactic is intended to break the spirit of the people who have continued to deny the junta effective control of the country. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has condemned the military's ongoing disregard and contempt for human life as, quote, an outrage to the conscience of humanity. Justice demands accountability. Today, Chris Pallotti and Margaret Wilson will be speaking about the jurisdiction of the international courts. What about the International Court of Justice? What about the International Criminal Court? And they will explore the possibility of holding the leader of the junta and his accomplices to account for the crimes against humanity that they have committed. A key question for today is, what is the pathway now to realizing the goal which the people of Myanmar have sacrificed so much for, the goal of having a sustained and genuine democracy in their country? The regional organisation ASEAN early on developed a 5-point consensus plan for returning Myanmar to constitutional government. But we have to say that by and large, the military has scorned that consensus and just carried on its murderous ways. The junta executed 4 political activists last July, notwithstanding pleas from its ASEAN partners not to do so. This provided yet more evidence that the junta refuses to be bound by ASEAN decisions. The geopolitical context around Myanmar is very complex. Russia actively supports the junta. China has positioned itself to ensure that its Myanmar investments and its Belt and Road access to the Indian Ocean through Myanmar are secured. India appears to have prioritised its own security interests in the border region with Myanmar. ASEAN and the United Nations have made little headway. We're fortunate to have David Capey and Susanna Patton with us today to provide further analysis of this complex contest and the failure to date of any effective multilateral response to the crisis. Last December, China announced the appointment of a new special envoy to Myanmar. That came after the United Nations' first resolution on Myanmar in 74 years, and after the passing by the United States Congress of the Burma Act, which authorises funds and technical assistance for anti-junta forces in Myanmar, including to ethnic armed organisations. The junta's pathway forward has been to plan for elections, perhaps later this year. It is attempting to woo ethnic parties, and perhaps it will try to woo a faction of the National League for Democracy even, to get people to join the elections. But the general view internationally is that the elections the junta is planning won't be credible and could well escalate the current level of violence. An alternative possible pathway was proposed by the former United States ambassador to Myanmar, Scott Marciel, who's called on the international community to support scrapping ASEAN's 5-point consensus and to increase public and private support for the national unity government. That government includes members of the democratically elected government of 2020 and associated civil society organisations which are fighting for the restoration of democracy. We have speakers with us today from Myanmar who will provide younger generation perspectives on the current situation and remind us how much of the fight for democracy is being led by the younger generations. Then the afternoon session with representatives from Myanmar and with Steve Marshall, our former ambassador to Myanmar, will provide a fascinating opportunity to explore these and other possible pathways forward. And that will be followed by a discussion, which I hope everyone will be able to engage in. In conclusion, we can all support the efforts to restore democracy and stability for the people of Myanmar. They have shown such incredible courage in fighting for democracy against a heavily armed opponent. Failure to find a credible way forward will impoverish Myanmar further. It will consolidate its status as a failed state, and it will bring further death and misery to the people. That is bad for Myanmar, it's bad for the people of Myanmar, and it's bad for our Asia-Pacific region. That's why we in New Zealand must give our firm support and concrete support to the return of democratic and constitutional government to Myanmar as soon as is possible. Thank you.